Once again, hello fourth graders and welcome to our writer's workshop for today. Here in session 16, we'll be looking at something called the other side of the story. We're going to think about two perspectives, not just the patriot perspective, but sometimes there's another side of the story, and that's what our lesson is going to focus on today. Many information books contain stories. And these stories are filled with facts while teaching the topic, even though some stories may be quote unquote made up. As we read an example, you can jot if you want, but otherwise think about your thoughts about this question. What does Grayson's story have that reminds you of the methods for writing powerful historical stories? Here's Grayson's work. April 18th. 1775. I was sleeping when I heard a scream. The regulars are coming. I jumped out of bed to hear the creaking floorboards. I grabbed a candle from Papa's box of candles from Mr. Winder, the French candle merchant, and lit it. I slowly creeped down the steps to see Mama with tears in her eyes, kissing Papa. He took his gun off the mantel above the hot fireplace. I asked, Papa, where are you going? He replied, The colonies need me, Freddie. He sighed and continued, If you needed me, I would help you. Same with the colonies. There was a knock on the door. Is this the Fumble residence? It was Paul Revere. I let him in. He's my family's silversmith. He asked, Parker, are you coming? My father replied, Yes, Paul. He gave me and Mama a kiss and walked out the door. Mama cried a bit more, then went to her bed. When I heard her snoring, then I went to our cellar and grabbed a musket. I found a bow and tied my hair just like a man's. I got in my father's child clothes and walked along, quietly following Papa. So there I am now at Lexington. I am laying in the grass thinking, what next? Am I going to be killed? There are some methods for writing powerful history stories. One is to imagine that you're a character and just let the story develop or spin out. You can think about a character with traits, wants, or who encounters trouble that gets worse and worse. Maybe think of a story as 2 or 3 scenes or small moments glued together with narration. Or you can sketch the plot in a story booklet and then touch each page and story, telling the whole story of that page, and you can make other story booklets to try other sequences. To write and think about history well, you need to remember that there is always more than one side to a story. When trying to understand an event in history, it's important to ask, what are some other sides to this story? When we write narratives, it's important to ask, whose story will you tell? You can look at the same set of facts and see them differently based on whose story you are telling. Paul Revere's point of view from his ride might go something like this. Paul is nervously carrying out his important mission, or of someone sleeping who heard the cry. Paul's story about knocking on the door of this particular house may have included that Paul saw the young girl leaning over the banister, listening in. He may have tried to get the parents to talk in the kitchen, out of earshot to the young girl, knowing that if she listened in, if she ended up joining the army, she'd be risking her life. But here's an example from earlier, the young girl's point of view, the daughter of a Minuteman. This story shows that she thinks about the relationship between her parents, about her mother's cries, and about their goodbye kiss, and about her own role in the war. She doesn't think a lot about what her father brings or doesn't bring with him to the war. Here's a good example, something for you to think about. What do you see? Think about this. In both pictures, there are 2 different perspectives. Depending on how you look, the first picture can show the very, very old lady, or it can be a very young woman. The second picture can show two faces staring at each other. Or maybe you're seeing a vase. Perspectives. The story of Paul Revere's ride will be a different story if it is told from the point of view of Paul Revere and a child of a Minuteman. It would be a very different story if it was told from the point of view of a loyalist. To accurately report what happens in your life, a person would need to talk to more than just one person and get more than one side of the story. There's lots of ways you could bring out different sides of the story in your report. You can title one of your chapters with that perspective. For example, the British side of the story. Or you can take any story you've written from your book and write the same story differently, this time telling it from someone else's point of view. This is what your responsibility will be today for your writing. You're going to take a different side, a different perspective, and describe that in a story. That's your writing assignment for today. To further think about things, what sorts of things might you put in a loyalist's side of the story? Well, you can think about the conflict and how the conflict or struggle would be told from the point of view of a loyalist. You have to think about how the loyalist might feel. Might they struggle with the fear that war was about to start? Might they wish that things could just stay the same, that the colonies were doing just fine with England in charge? That the loyalists might feel afraid for the lives of the men who would likely have to go to war? How will the story go now in the perspective of a loyalist? Here's a loyalist's woman's perspective. The British are coming! The British are coming! The call came through Elizabeth's open window and woke her. She listened again. The British are coming! She imagined the handsome British soldiers gathering to protect her and the other loyalists. Her heart pounded. She knew this man was... A famous saying among historians is that history is written in victories or victors. What that means is that people who win the wars are usually the ones who are given the say in how the story of the war is written. Other people say it's not just the winners who have a say, it's also the folks who have the most power. You see, stories are oftentimes not told through the perspective of a child of the war, or the loser's experience, or the slave's experience of the war. Historians go to great lengths to try to find the stories that have been lost, and to bring out the voices that haven't been heard. What can you do to make sure that more than one side of a story is told? Today is the last day for drafting the report you originally planned to write. Tomorrow will be devoted to editing. So size up where you are in your writing process and figure out what you need to work on for today. My suggestion is that today you write a story from a different perspective. It can be a mini story, just a few short paragraphs perhaps, but this is the opportunity that you have today to add one more chapter to your booklet. And as you create your booklet and you think about the alternate perspective, the idea of giving it a title and looking from a different point of view is what you're assigned to do today. I wish you well. Good luck with this writing assignment and get ready for editing coming up tomorrow.